Hello, hello. Welcome everyone to a Facebook Live in my new abode. So, wow, I'm Lisa Murray, and today I thought we would talk about turning points and trust. And you know, those two topics, when you put them together, it's like, yeah, okay, we've got turning points happening left, right, and center at the moment. And then we have these questions of trust as we're in the turning points. And maybe I'll start with just, a little story about that, and then we might go into the more general and, collective sort of picture of that. But so recently I moved house again. For those of you who've been following that track, it seems like I'm always moving. It feels like I'm always moving. And it was really interesting how it happened because I was kind of aware that there were some things that weren't working for me and I probably needed to move house, but I wasn't in any mad hurry. And then I went and did some puppy sitting for my mum and dad. And while I was there, all of my physical symptoms, and there was quite a list of them, went away within about 3 days. And at the same time, I realized that, oh, there's actually a whole big connection here with mold. And I knew the house I was living in had some mold, but I didn't really realize how bad it was, that it would change so dramatically. And when I say that, I was measuring it on my bioresonance scanner, so I absolutely knew what was there and what wasn't there and all that kind of thing. So I decided that by the time I finished at mum and dad's, I needed to be moving. And mainly because I didn't want to go back into that mold environment and have all those symptoms starting up again. And so I just turned on the instant creation turning point. I want to say gene almost, but it's not quite a gene. And I made a very kind command to my dragons, to the water, to the trees, to find me somewhere else to live, ASAP. And I was very clear on the ASAP. Now, before I'd gone to my mum and dad's, I had decided there'd be a couple of things I'd put on Marketplace because I just didn't want them anymore. And it wasn't really connected with the whole thought about moving. It was just like, I don't want those things. Anyway, as it turned out, one of my friends who I hadn't seen in a while said to me, oh, I like those chairs. And we started chatting. And then all of a sudden she's like, well, we're moving to a new place on Friday. And this was like Tuesday, right? That I'd asked the dragons. And I was like, okay, cool. Can I come and have a look? And because they were looking to share. And literally, I really had a strong gut feeling it would work. And so I pretty much asked the removalist if he was available and sort of started to think about logistics. And literally, I went and looked on Friday. We worked out it would probably work. And here I am in my new place, like less than 2 weeks later. So this is the energy that we're in. Things can seem like treacle. They can seem so slow. They can feel like nothing's moving. They can feel literally just like, what would I say? Literally like there's no option available. And then all of a sudden, things just open up in perfect harmony. And I think this is really important to remember because, I'd started kind of looking to see what was around and there wasn't much. Like it was even much worse than the last time I moved. And so I was kind of like, wow, okay, I have this feeling I'm moving and there's not a lot of choice out there at this moment. So that was really interesting. And of course, we are in a rental crisis and there's all those things about people not being able to find their way forward. So when we think about this now, so that's just my little sort of intro story of, things can happen really fast. And I think it's important to remember that because sometimes we've been in a pattern for a long time and all of a sudden the shift is there and we need to be prepared for that shift and we need to actually be allowing that shift to support us and lead us forward. And we're in an age of turning points. It's not just there's occasional one coming up for random people. It's like we're in the age of turning points. Everything is going to shift and change in these coming years. And it's interesting that we've just had a Taurus new moon. And that is really the perfect catalyst for reclaiming our courage and building new realities. Because we can pretend everything's okay and, do our best to get things sort of, working where we are. And yet, if it's not ideal, if it's not really providing a foundation for longer term support, then we need to consider the possibility of change. So some turning points come to us, and sometimes we come to the turning point where we go, enough, I'm not going to do this anymore. And I'm interested, say hi everyone who's coming on live. I'm interested to know, are you at a turning point at the moment? Because I think that it's really quite interesting. And I feel like for me, I'm at a turning point with lots and lots of things. And of course, I've had plenty of time as I was packing up and unpacking stuff and, cleaning it all, making sure there's no mold on anything, to actually really get a sense of, well, where am I at and where am I going next? And I think that can be really good to do that in an environment where you haven't got as much pressure. Let's just call it that. And so right now, it's the time to both make the most of where we are, but also, and very importantly, not settle for less than we deserve and less than we desire. And yeah, hi Rochelle. Yeah, selling and buying a new home. Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like there's going to be a lot of change around homes actually, because it's almost like we need to be settling into the space that we're supposed to be for the next, I guess, round of, the world creating total change in all aspects. And so it's really interesting when people are moving in small and big ways. I mean, I didn't move that far. I moved about 40 minutes away from where I was. But interestingly, I had really just built all these kind of foundational support networks, and I'd really connected with a lot of really interesting people. And all of a sudden now I'm like 40 minutes away from those people. And part of me was a little bit sad about that actually. And yet there's this other part of me that's like, okay, but the bigger picture is I can still connect with those people. I can still actually go see them, or they can come and see me. And there's more people to meet. Like I really got that very strongly when I started looking at this picture. So this sort of spaciousness where we realize what our turning points are generally comes from stillness and rest and replenishment. It rarely comes when we're in the midst of running around crazily. And this was interesting for me because I was at my mum and dad's puppy sitting, and I had planned to sort of use that as a bit of a retreat energy. And yet, it didn't work out like that at all. It ended up being a bit of a mad scramble because I had to then try and pack while I was puppy sitting, which was interesting to say the least. And so what was interesting though was yesterday I thought, I'm just going to give myself the day to lie on the earth and do nothing. And we can't underestimate the power of those things, because I'd gotten really tired. It was a lot to move in that short amount of time. And what I noticed was that just lying on the earth and just watching the clouds for hours, literally for hours, I actually started to feel like myself again, but not necessarily myself as I was, myself as I am in this new space. And so it's really important that we allow ourselves that, so that we can, I want to say, distinguish between the distractions and the stuff that's really important. Because often in the business of your day, there's a lot of things that, they're pulling on your energy. But the question is, well, are they really important, or are they distractions? And I think that we need to really get clear that now is the time to place our attention in the spaces where we have the real intention, rather than in the spaces of distraction. And that does sometimes require slowing down. And some people will be like, oh, I don't want to slow down. I want to do everything at speed. And I think that's great too. I do a lot of things at speed. But there are times when it's really clear that the new is going to come from a time of going inwards. So what happens is when we slow down, we can see what's not working for us. And I think that maybe brings me to my first point. And that is really about, what are you going to say never again to? Okay? Because if we keep going in the ways we have been and keep allowing the same habits, so we might move, or we might get a new job, or whatever it might be, we get something large and new in our life, might be a relationship, whatever. And yet, if we do the same things we've always done, just but have that new thing, we're not really moving ourselves or the planet forward. And so I've been really looking at, well, what do I want to say never again to? And there's a few things that have come out of these recent moves that I'm like very, very clear about. And, you know, maybe you're committing to never abandoning yourself again, or never trusting someone who's proven quite untrustworthy. Or you might be really clear that you're not going to get stuck in a financial or relationship. I can't talk this afternoon. I'm still a bit tired. Relationship situation that does not serve your brilliance and magic. And so we're also in a phase now where there's new energy, completely new energy, right? Like we've never had this energy on the planet before. So everything we've ever told ourselves that we can't do or that we shouldn't do, or that, you know, it's always been this way. I think that's probably a favorite for a lot of people, is I can't change that because it's always been this way. And we really have to get to this place now where every day we're looking at, well, what do I need to let go of? Because as we let go of old realities, we invite new, that space is for the new. And it's really interesting because the time for repeating the same mistakes over and over is over. And I've really been noticing this because I've been giving myself a lot of frequency support. And that's been super helpful because not only in the physical, like I fell over, oh my God, I fell over on the first day that I came to the new house. And I did sort of hardcore make my body a bit sore, let's just call it that. And it was really interesting though, because between the frequency support and it's really funny because I ended up actually running a playlist for vertigo, because even though I didn't hit my head was really hurting a lot. And that actually changed things dynamically. And then I've since been running more playlists around, you know, brain and head things. And it's really interesting how it keeps shifting the energy and shifting the energy. And I think this is really important, is to look at, well, what are the tools that we have available, you know? And not everyone has frequencies, although I can do frequencies for people, and that's interesting and fun too. But I'm finding that if I look at, well, what is it I want to shift and change, then what frequencies can I run for that? It really helps a lot in the saying never again, because you don't, once you shift the frequency, so everything occurs in our energy body first, right? And so once you shift the frequency, you actually don't need to work as hard at keeping yourself in a particular state, because as you shift the frequency, your body is going to respond. And that's very magical. And I'm starting to actually bring frequency into all of my offers, because I can really see how things that we've just found so hard in the past, because the energy was so dense, let's face it. And no matter how much we might try, sometimes you feel like you're really pushing, you know, poo uphill. Let's say poo. Yes. And so it's been such a good education for me this last 12 months to really notice how much difference the frequencies can make. And if you want to know more about that, let me know and I can send you some info. Some people love having it for themselves. Some people love other people doing it for them. It just depends what's important to you. And so shifting realities is really, really essential. And so I think now I want to talk about the next thing, which is sort of very related to that, which is about what are you determined is going to change this year, even if you've never been able to change it before. And I've got a few things on my list there. And I'm really aware that as I move out of the old programming, out of the old ways of creating, out of, frequency tuning forks are great. Yeah, that's good, Rochelle, really good. I have actually a whole set of tuning, like the tuning fork frequencies in my device, so I can literally play them for myself at any time. And I'm always fascinated when I scan as to what comes up. So back to the whole moving out of the old programming, because really actually tuning forks are very good for that. They can shift things very, very quickly. And so we get stuck in, you know, how other people are doing things as well. You know, there's a lot of this is how you do it, this is how you can be successful out there, a lot of noise. And I'm really looking at, well, what if I just look at every choice with fresh eyes and an open heart and allow myself to actually perceive what could be different from this moment now? Because we've never been here before. We might think we have. It might look like Groundhog Day on the surface, but we have not been here before. Energetically, cosmically, we have not been here before. So we can't rely on the old ways as well, you know, it used to work that way, so it's still going to work that way, because it's not going to be how it is. It's not how it is already. And so that's where we need to stop following all the experts and the blueprints and the formulas, and actually allow ourselves to really connect with our inner world and ask, well, what's going to work for me now? And that can be very diverse and very surprising. You know, I hadn't really thought I was moving south. I thought I was moving north. And because a lot of my life was north of where I was living. And I was literally like, oh my gosh, I'm moving south. And it doesn't feel wrong, interestingly enough, because I'm 5 minutes from the beach, which is awesome. And I'm with really great people. And so it's really been interesting to kind of be able to play with that and go, well, my brain thought one thing, but my body was really clear on something else, you know? So when we get really determined about what we're going to change, there's a few things to look at. And the first thing I always look at is, well, what can I nourish today? Because as we nourish something new, as we bring a new energy into our world, what happens is different possibilities will open up. And often we need to simplify and we need to soften before that will occur. Because if we go, what will I nourish today? And we just pile it into our to-do list as if, oh my gosh, you know, it's another thing to do, then that's not nourishing actually for anything or anyone. But if we start to just slow down just a tiny bit, and you know, this is the letting go part of this whole scenario in the turning points, is what can you let go of? What actually is no longer useful to you? And for me, there's a fair few things on my list. Well, like when I was at my parents' puppy sitting, I was like, oh, there's this and there's this and there's this. It was like, okay, there's quite a bit of room for change. Let's call it that. And so as we explore that, then we gain momentum. And I will just mention here that I do have a lovely, lovely offer at the moment, which is called Momentum Mentoring. And you get as many 15-minute sessions as you want within a specific time period. And it's really amazing what can happen from those sessions, because literally we're just popping the next thing that's ready into the mix and getting it moving, and doing that in very fun, playful, creative ways. You know, I asked someone earlier in the year, I have this amount of money in mind that I thought I'd like to make this year, and not that I'm at all money driven, I'm not, but the way I see it is, if I made a lot of money, I could buy myself a house and I wouldn't have to move ever again if I didn't want to, which, you know, is quite enticing at this point, having moved 3 times in 18 months. So what was really interesting is I said to a friend of mine, you know, do you reckon I can hit that target? And she's like, yeah, you can actually. It's not crazy. Because I was pretty much like, am I crazy? She's like, no, you're not crazy. What she did say though was, it has to be done with play and fun. And so really a lot of my mentoring sessions with people are about, how do we bring the joy back into our creation? How do we bring the playfulness back into our daily work? Because I do believe that how we do something is as important, if not more important, than what we do and where we end up. Because the how we do it is what's actually feeding our soul. And if we are doing things in really difficult ways and challenging ways, then there's no soul food, there's no magic for the soul. Whereas if we're doing things in ways that are playful and fun and, you know, all of that kind of stuff, then the soul feels really nourished, and so more doors open. And I think this is really important to recognize. And, you know, don't feel the pressure to do this in every part of your life. Let's start somewhere. Start somewhere. All right. So then, after we ask, what can we nourish today? I think the other question that, you know, when we're talking about things that you've tried hard to change and that you haven't been able to change, is literally to say to the universe, dear universe, feel free to astound me in the most miraculous of ways today. And allow yourself, because this is your reminder to yourself that the energy has shifted, that we are in new energies with new possibilities, that we are becoming new, you know, and I think that's really important, that to acknowledge that we are becoming new. Because if we pretend that we're the same old Lisa, and it's funny, I got all my hair cut off the week I moved house as well. And really interesting, because I I sort of went to the hairdresser and said, maybe next time we'll cut all my hair off. And she's like, let's do it now. And I was like, okay then, because of course hair holds energy, right? And so that was really interesting for me. And it actually is this really great visual reminder that the energy has shifted, that I am not that person anymore. And I think it's really, really important to find ways to remind yourself of that. So, dear universe, feel free to astound me in the most miraculous of ways today. That's your little mantra for the coming week. Now, third thing I really wanted to talk about is, what do you know that really works for you, but somehow it always comes last, right? Now, we all have these things. For me, the things that really work, and when I say work for you, nourishes you, nurtures you, opens things up for you, creates expansion. And what I notice is that for me, those two things are mostly being in, or three things, being in nature. Yay, sunrise beach walks I have started. You'll be seeing many more sunrise photos on my feed from now on, because I'm really making an effort to go do that every day. Sunrise beach walks, art play, and what's the other one? Oh, writing, my writing. And I think I want to talk a little bit about writing, because we often, the thing we really truly neglect is our personal self-expression. And when I say personal self-expression, what I'm talking about is that soul expression, okay, where we're really allowing the truth of who we are to be expressed in the world. And it's really interesting to realize that so often we're holding back because of our shoulds and our to-do lists and all the other things, all our obligations. And this is the big shift the world is going to go through, that we're not going to continue to live like that, because we can't, because the frequency is too high right now and going into the future, and it's not going to really work for us to keep living from obligation. And so as we move out of that trap of all the shoulds, and there's so many different shoulds, you know, I've talked about this many times over the years, you know, in our self-expression, there's all these people's expectations about how we should express ourselves. And, you know, our ways of living, our relationships, almost every facet of our modern life. And when I look at all that, I go, you know, this is ultimately what's wrong with the world, is we have all kind of fallen into, or been, you know, indoctrinated into these patterns and habits that are not actually aliveness. They're not beauty. They're not magic. This is how it is, and suck it up. And I think it's time to stop sucking it up. We're not vacuum cleaners. Let me just say that to you. We are not vacuum cleaners, and we need to stop sucking it up. We need to actually go, no, I am not going to live like that. I'm going to put what nourishes me, what nurtures me first. I'm going to put my self-expression as a priority. And I noticed, like, because one of my things I've been doing as I've moved is going back through lots of my old notebooks. And I'm noticing those times in my life when I really did put self-expression first. And the writing was amazing. And I'm kind of like, oh my God, did I write that? You know, like, it's kind of surprising in a way. And I think that this is really important, to write for yourself. Like, a lot of my writing does not end up online, and may never end up online, because I'm writing for the purity of self-expression, where no other being can tell me what I should be saying, doing, you know, how I should be saying it, all those things. And I think that the antidote for, you know, this lack of self-expression and this habitual shooting of ourselves is really to reignite what is sacred within us, what is sovereign within us, and what is sensuous within us. Because we are sensual beings, in the sense of we are attuned to many senses, not only the physical. Okay, let me say that very, very clearly. And I am starting a writing group called The Sacred and the Sensuous, which starts this Thursday, and it's going to go for 4 weeks, twice a week. And it's really, I think, important, because as we connect with our inner worlds, which are sacred, which are sensuous, and ultimately which are sovereign, as we connect with those worlds, what happens is we rediscover not only the change that our soul is requesting, but a sense of aliveness and a sense of presence that cannot be quietened. Let's just say that. It cannot be quietened by others. And, you know, I use writing as a form of recalibration. When I want to change something in my world, pretty much I write. And not in a journaling sense, okay? In a creative sense. Because my view is that as we write creatively, and so we're not writing to pour something out that we don't want. When I'm talking about writing, what I would call writing alchemy, writing creatively, intuitively, what we're really doing is we're digging deep into ourselves, deep into the awareness that has been hidden for a long time, deep into sometimes other lives or other realms, and we're actually looking for or seeking all of those seeds that can actually bring the beauty and the magic to life in the ways that actually not only change the world for ourselves, but change it for other people. And that doesn't mean you have to share your writing, okay? What happens is writing is a transformational process. Thank you, Sally. She said, you sound so alive. I am alive. Much more alive than I was yesterday when I just had to lie on the earth for a few hours. But I am alive. And I think it's really important to allow ourselves this deep inner alchemy that really does build the bridges between the old world and the new world that we all know is coming, right? We all know there's a new earth coming, that we are here to bring the new earth. We all know that. But we're not always doing what will bring it. And I look at it that in the sacred and the sensuous, for example, like I know I'm going to write some dragon books this year. They're definitely on the list. And those books are also, I want to say about love, right? And when we talk about love, people have a very 3D preconceived notion of what love is. And one of the reasons I want to play with the sacred and the sensuous is to really not even redefine love, because I think we're past that, but really get to the core of what it truly is. And this is how we can totally recalibrate what's going on in the world, is by looking at, well, what is this really? And not even how did we get so far away from what this is really, right? Because sometimes you look at what it is really and you're like, oh my gosh, you know, the reality is so far away from the truth of this. But actually, we, in the writing, begin to bridge the dimensions, and we become able to know ourselves in new ways, and know the world in new ways. Because, you know, years and years ago, when I was traveling a lot, I didn't have that many friends on the Sunshine Coast, and I was having a bit of a whine about it to someone one day, and they said to me, well, you know, you get what you look for, like you get what you ask for. So if you haven't got those friends, it's not that they don't exist. Because I was saying, I don't think these people exist, you know, because I couldn't find them. I couldn't work out how to find them. And this person said to me, well, no, it's not that. It's that if you don't believe they exist, they can't enter your reality. And this is the same with writing. So in some ways, what we're doing by writing new things, creative things, things that have never, you know, entered our minds before, we're actually bringing things into existence that we desire to have in existence. And I think that that's a miraculous process, because literally, as we do that, we don't necessarily have to do all the work of making things happen. You know, it's funny because not long after that, I started making friends, because I was like, okay, I'm going to shift my reality to there are people here that I would really enjoy, and you know, let me find them. And it's really interesting because every time I've moved, I've got faster and faster at finding the people. And I haven't really ventured out down here yet, but I feel like there's a whole new group of people down here also waiting to connect. And over the years, I've, you know, developed many beautiful friendships just from that one shift. And so we need to look at the ways of being that are really past their use by dates. And this can be the way we look at love or friendship or our work, whatever. Like, it doesn't matter what it is, but we need to look at, well, what is really past its use by date? What do I look at out in the world and just get cringy about? Because I don't want the world to be like that anymore. These are the things that we can literally write into a new existence. Rochelle, I'm at Mount Coolum, still on the sunny coast. I don't know that I'm going to move from the sunny coast. It just seems to be my Australian home. So we'll see. Who knows? Anyway, I love Mount Coolum because it's a beautiful mountain energetically. Incredible. It's probably I hate to have a favourite. It's like having a favourite child, right? It's probably my favourite mountain on the coast, though, for quite a variety of reasons. And also the beach. It's got a really beautiful beach walk, and it's got a really beautiful inland walk. Karen, you better not. I presume you're talking about leaving the coast. Not anytime soon, love. I might move into the country eventually. I feel like I'm going to end up on a farm. That's my ultimate thing. That's why I'm going to enjoy the beach now. I feel like this is just my enjoy the beach time, because then you'll be moving to a farm, Anyway, we'll see. Can never predict these things. So, whatever it is that's past the use by date, okay? Horse farm, probably. That's not past its use by date. I can tell you that. I do miss all my horse snuggles in the mornings. That was really a highlight of living on the horse property a while back. So yeah, but things that are past their use by date. So we can write new things into existence, and we can use frequency to support the actualization of those things as well. And so what I noticed is that we have to let go first, right? We can't hold on to the old until we see the new, right? Because this is what happens is most people want to hold on to the old until they can see the new, and then they'll let go. But actually, sometimes you've got to let go first. You've literally got to go, okay, I have no idea where this is going. I don't know what it's going to look like. And, this is the precipice we're on as a world right now, as a planet. It's like we have to let go of the old because it is not working. We can see that in so many different ways, frequencies to actually just fill that gap whilst I'm deciding what's going to go in it, so to speak. What happens is, again, new possibilities show up. And I find this fascinating because we're, as the world is, we're moving very quickly. Yeah, I'm sorry the video's dropping out. The internet here is probably not quite as good as it could be. I think it's because I might have to get a bouncer thing. I can't remember what they're called, where it bounces the signal a little bit further, because I'm kind of at the opposite corner of the house to the internet. So sorry, it keeps dropping out. I'll work out a better plan for next time. And anyway, so in essence, we need to bring forward what allows our souls to speak in expansion, because our souls actually only speak in expansion, right? Only speak in expansion. And yet any contraction is either our past or our fear speaking. So our choice ultimately is, where will we place our energy? What will actually work for us? So probably the third thing to mention, so I've told you a little bit about my momentum mentoring. I've told you a little bit about the Sacred and Sensuous Writing Alchemy, which starts on Thursday. And the third thing I'm going to bring forward very shortly with the frequency side of things is actually a group based on courage. And it's just going to be 21 days of resetting the energetics of our courage, because that's, what we need most. To bring through the new, we have to have courage. We have to be able to bring it in ways that we never have before, without knowing everything in advance, and some of you who've been around for a long time will know that I've talked a lot about the unknown over the years, and the unknown is a very beautiful place actually, because when we look at the world we have, a lot of it is known and a lot of it is horrifying as well. And when we start to then go, well, what do we want? This is the magic and the beauty of creation. And it's open to all of us. You know, there's nobody on the planet who can't create something new at this point in time. And that's, I think, very important to remember. We're not powerless. We have incredible power, and it comes from our heart, our soul, our love for ourselves, and our love for everyone around us. All right, I think that's all I wanted to say for today. I might come back on later in the week and do one or two more. I'm just feeling it now that I'm settled in the new place. It feels like there's a lot more, and I've definitely been getting the message for a little while now that, you know, need to put things out there, as in expressing all these thoughts that are here. So let's just see what shows up. If you've got a topic you want me to talk about, you are welcome to throw it in the chat. And yeah, let's see what shows up. All right, I love you all. Thank you so much for coming on and playing, and big hugs. And I hope that you do take a little bit of space for yourself in these next couple of days, just to do a bit of letting go. Oh yeah, my glitter wall. My mum made that. It used to be at her house and I stole it. I was literally like, do you want that? And she's like, no, all right, you can have it. And it's really fun. So yeah, so I just feel like now is the time we can start building these foundations. Okay, we can start really making the new, because the old is going to continue to crumble, and we don't have to wait for it to completely crumble before we create the new. Okay, and so I reckon it's time just to start thinking about, well, what is the new that you're here for? You know, and that's where the writing comes in. This is why I love to write, because it always shows me what's next. I can not think and write, and that's something that I teach in the Writing Alchemy classes, because we don't want to create the new from our brains. We want to create it from our being, from our soul, from our heart, from the beauty and the presence that we are. All right, I'm going to go now. I love you all. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll chat soon. See you later.